So Steve, have you ever heard of anybody taking the mold apart too early? And what is your suggestion as far as when it should be taken out?
Yeah, what happens if you take the mold apart too early or take the stone out too early is that you could actually peel a layer of the concrete off. So when you take it apart, you'll see that there's not a chunk, but just a layer of the concrete that came off. Kind of messes it up a little bit. You can patch it, but I suggest waiting. If it's summertime, maybe 3 days. If it's winter, if it's cooler, 5 days, something like that. That should work.
So what's the difference between hot weather and cold weather?
Just heat causes that concrete to set up faster.
Oh. So does it essentially like cure or whatever from the inside out then?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you keep it in a mold, it cures from the inside out. A lot of guys will just keep the stone saturated in like wet towels, burlap, stuff like that. I don't really do that. You can just, just let it cure on its own. Normally, it's fine.
What do you do if when you take it apart, like the top is all rough or a certain part of it is all rough? Then what are you going to do?
You just patch it. Like if the top, a lot of times the bottom of the mold will be really smooth because the weight of the concrete's pressing down against the bottom, and then the top will have air bubbles and things like that. Then you just patch it, which I kind of explained in the patching technique. The stone that was pretty poor. You can do that with every stone. If it just has like little bubbles, little air bubbles on the top or imperfections, you can do that.
Now, I've heard you talk about in the past the brick technique. Can you go over that?
Yeah, what that is you just fill up your mold completely with concrete, and then you take a brick and you plunge it into the borehole and just keep it in there. But what's going to happen is going to push excess concrete up out of the borehole and then push it firmly against the top portion of the mold, which will give you a better stone. It'll be smoother on top.
Is there anything else that people have called you about and asked you questions, or they've had difficulties with making the stones?
Not really. Just, everything put together is really what you want to do. A little bit of your homework before. That's one reason why I wanted to come out with this DVD with you. So, just so everybody will be able to see everything put together rather than bits and pieces. I guess the most common one would be how come it's smooth on the bottom and rough on the top. That's just, you can't help that. That's just the nature of concrete. So the best thing to do would just be to learn how to patch it and finish it properly.
Let me ask you this: if someone were to want to make stones, they want to get a mold, how long do your molds last, and how many stones can you get out of a mold?
Well, I've probably got about 40 stones out of one mold before. Some people have called me before and said, "Hey, I just poured my 50th stone. This is a great product." I pretty much just say you can just make them until you're bored of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they generally don't fail as long as you're making smart decisions with how you're treating them and stuff.
Yeah, just use mold release. That'll help with the ease of separating the mold.
Is there anything else we can do to make the molds last longer for us?
Use mold release, and that's the biggest. Okay. Yeah.
How do you store your molds when you're not using them, when you're not making a stone? How do you store them? Is there a good way to keep them? Do you have to keep them out of the sunlight? Do you have to keep them out of the cold to keep them from cracking or anything like that?
Yeah, it's probably a good idea to keep them out of the sunlight. And I just stack them. They're nice because you get all these different size molds, and they naturally stack on top of each other, so they don't take up a whole lot of room.
Awesome, Steve.